Letters to a Young Contrarian by Christopher Hitchens. This is a book summary. Imagine standing alone against the tide, questioning authority, challenging dogma, and refusing to conform. Sounds terrifying, right? Well, not if you're Christopher Hitchens. If there was ever a man who turned disagreement into an art form, it was him. And today we dive into his ultimate masterclass on dissent. Letters to a Young Contrarian. This book isn't just a set of letters, it's a battle cry for those who refuse to be silenced. It's the guidebook for anyone who feels like an outsider in a world that rewards obedience. So, if you've ever felt out of step with the majority, if you've ever questioned what everyone else seems to accept without a second thought, then Hitch has a message for you. Buckle up, it's going to be an intellectually rebellious ride. Chapter 1: The Art of Contrarianism. So, what does it even mean to be a contrarian? Hitchens makes it clear. It's not about being different just for the sake of it. It's about resisting the comfortable consensus, thinking independently, and most importantly, questioning everything. Hitch warns us about the danger of herd mentality, the slow, suffocating consensus that demands we think as we are told, believe as we are instructed, and live as we are expected to. In a world that thrives on conformity, being a contrarian isn't just an option, it's an act of survival. But here's where it gets interesting. Society only celebrates rebels after they've won. Think of Émile Zola, who nearly lost everything when he publicly defended an innocent man in the Dreyfus affair. George Orwell, who was branded a troublemaker for exposing the hypocrisy of both left and right. Or Rosa Parks, whose quiet defiance on a bus was treated as an act of insurrection. In Letters to a Young Contrarian, Hitchens reminds us that true dissenters are rarely beloved in their own time. Go too far outside the box, he writes, and you'll find yourself labeled a fanatic, a misfit, a malcontent. But here's the twist. History is written by the misfits, for the misfits. And the ones who refuse to go quietly, they're the ones who change the world. Hitchens doesn't just admire contrarians. He embodies the very spirit of rebellion. He didn't just challenge politicians, he skewered them. He didn't just criticize religious figures, he dismantled their myths. He took on the powerful and the celebrated, from Bill Clinton to Princess Diana, and he did it with a fearlessness that made people furious. But as he saw it, if an idea can't stand up to scrutiny, it probably doesn't deserve our respect in the first place. And that, my friends, is why dissent matters. Not because it's easy, not because it makes you popular, but because every great truth, every breakthrough, every revolution, every piece of progress started with someone who refused to nod along and smile. So, the next time you find yourself hesitating before voicing an unpopular opinion, remember this: history doesn't remember the quiet ones. It remembers the rebels who refused to stay silent. Chapter 2: Thinking for yourself is a full-time job. Hitchens warns us, most people don't actually want to think. They want to be told what to think. Schools, governments, and even social groups encourage conformity. Why? Because independent thinking is dangerous. And dangerous ideas, truly dangerous ideas, have the power to change everything. Hitchens had a favorite line. The essence of the independent mind lies not in what it thinks, but in how it thinks. That's the real challenge. Thinking not just critically, but independently. Because here's the thing. There will always be those who claim to love free thought, as long as you're thinking the right things. Step outside the accepted narrative, and suddenly, the lovers of free speech want you to sit down and be quiet. Take the example of Galileo, a man who, through observation and reason, proved that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. The church didn't just disagree with him, they saw his discovery as an existential threat. So they told him to shut up, to recant, to submit. And under the shadow of the Inquisition, he did. But before walking away, legend has it he muttered under his breath. It still moves. That single phrase, whispered in defiance, is the very spirit of independent thought. Because truth doesn't change just because the powerful wish it to. Reality doesn't bend to authority, and facts remain facts, even when denied by the masses. And here's Hitch's takeaway. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes, even if you're alone in a room full of nodding heads, even if they try to silence you. In fact, If they try to silence you, that's your proof that what you're saying matters. The greatest ideas in history weren't born in consensus. They were born in opposition from those who refused to surrender their minds to convenience. So, if you ever find yourself in a moment where your instincts tell you to think differently, don't ignore that impulse. It's the spark that has set every revolution, every scientific breakthrough, and every social transformation into motion. Chapter 3: The Power of As If. One of the book's most powerful ideas is the concept of living as if. Hitchens borrowed this from the dissidents of communist regimes, people who had no political freedom but lived as if they did. Because when you live under tyranny, direct rebellion is often impossible, but refusing to act like a prisoner, that is a different kind of revolution, a quieter one, a slower one, but in the long run, just as dangerous to those in power. Want an example? Think about Václav Havel, the Czech playwright turned political dissident. He lived under a dictatorship, but behaved as if he were already free. He wrote, he spoke, he challenged the system, not through weapons, but through words. And for years, it seemed pointless. He was arrested. Hitchens points to Havel's story as proof that no system of control, no dictatorship, no ideology, no matter how powerful, can withstand people who refuse to mentally submit to it. And guess what? That mindset is just as relevant today. The moment you stop waiting for permission to be yourself and start acting as if you already are, that's when change happens. If you want to be an artist, act as if you are one and create. If you want to be free, live as if you already are, even in small ways. If you want to challenge an injustice, act as if your voice carries weight, because it does. Oppression isn't just about laws, it's about submission, and the greatest act of defiance is to simply refuse to surrender your mind. Chapter 4: Why Niceness is Overrated. This one's controversial, but hear me out. Hitchens wasn't a big fan of the be nice to everyone philosophy. Why? Because politeness, when used as a shield against truth, is just another form of cowardice. It's not that he valued rudeness, he simply saw truth as a greater virtue than civility. In Letters to a Young Contrarian, Hitchens warns against the false friends of free speech, those who pretend to champion open discourse, but immediately recoil when an uncomfortable truth is spoken. He argues that politeness is often used as a social gag order, a way to keep difficult but necessary conversations at bay. And nowhere is this more evident than in discussions about religion, power, and authority. Example, when people say, "Don't criticize religion, it's rude." Hitchens would say, "Rude? No, necessary. If an idea is bad, it should be criticized. If a belief system is harmful, it must be confronted. Sugarcoating lies doesn't turn them into truth. It just allows them to persist unchallenged." He once wrote, "The only way to live is by knowing the difference between being shunned and being heard." And here's what that means. The moment you start speaking difficult truth, people will turn away. They will call you difficult, argumentative, even dangerous. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. In fact, it might be the best indication that you're saying something important. But does this mean you should go around picking fights just for the sake of it? No. Hitchens himself despised mindless contrarianism, the kind that rebels just to be edgy. But should you ever be afraid to speak out because it makes people uncomfortable? Also no. Truth should never take a backseat to decorum. So here's the real challenge. The next time you're tempted to bite your tongue in the name of politeness, ask yourself, am I holding back because it's the right thing to do? Or because I'm afraid of making waves? If it's the latter, well, Hitchens would tell you to say it anyway. Chapter 5: How to be a rebel without losing your mind. Now, before you run off to burn everything down in the name of rebellion, Hitch has one final lesson. Being a contrarian doesn't mean being a jerk. It means standing for something real. Because here's the thing, rebellion without purpose is just noise. It's easy to be against something. It's much harder to be for something. Hitchens wasn't a contrarian for the sake of it. He believed that dissent should serve a higher cause, whether it was justice, truth, or intellectual integrity. So, how do you do it? How do you live as a contrarian without turning into a bitter cynic? Here are 3 quick rules, straight from Hitch's playbook. Stay skeptical, not cynical. Question everything, but don't assume everything is hopeless. The goal isn't to destroy, it's to improve. Cynics believe the world can't be changed. Skeptics believe it must be. 2. Pick your battles wisely. You don't have to fight every single fight. Focus on what truly matters. Wasting energy on trivial disagreements is a distraction from the fights that actually need to be won. 3. Have fun with it. Hitchens wasn't just brilliant, he was hilarious. He knew that humor is often the sharpest weapon against authority. The ability to laugh at power, to ridicule the absurd, is one of the greatest tools of any dissenter. In the end, the trick to being a successful contrarian is simple. Don't just fight, fight smart. So, what's the takeaway from Letters to a Young Contrarian? Simple. If you want to live an honest life, you have to be willing to be unpopular. You have to be willing to challenge sacred cows, to stand alone if necessary, and to never, never trade truth for comfort. Hitchens left us with many brilliant thoughts, but let's end with this one. Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way. So, will you take the risk? Will you dare to speak when others remain silent? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and stay rebellious. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep fighting the good fight.